In this video, we're going to talk dairy. We're going to dispel some myths and talk about some truths that aren't so commonly known. If you have allergies, if you have asthma, eczema, digestive problems, or arthritis, you're going to want to listen to this video. Most of us grew up being taught that milk was a healthy food. It was one of the 4 food groups, and it was extremely important that we had enough dairy products to grow up to be a healthy person. But what we're finding out is that a lot of that just isn't true. And those studies and those programs are often funded by the Dairy Association. And even if they had our best interests at heart, the science is starting to show that, that there are some severe problems associated with dairy. There are 2 particular things in the dairy that seem to be problematic for people. One is the milk sugar, lactose, and I'm sure you've heard the term lactose intolerant. And that refers to some bodies just lose the ability to break down lactose. And this makes sense because generally speaking, animals have milk until they're weaned by their mother. For us, this happens around 2 years old, and our bodies aren't meant to have the ability to digest milk after that. So becoming lactose intolerant is a natural thing. The other issue for people is the casein, which is a protein in milk, and the casein can be extremely inflammatory for people. And when you hear people talk about being allergic to milk, they're talking about the casein. It may seem like I'm splitting hairs with the differences there, but they're important for you personally, because people who are lactose intolerant often do well with cheese or yogurt because the lactose in there is eaten by the bacteria that grow, so cheese and yogurt have little to no lactose in them. So if lactose is your issue, you might do okay with those. If casein is the issue for you, you're going to want to cut all dairy. Now, compounding the casein and the lactose are our farming practices here in the U.S. The cows live in unnatural habitats, they eat unnatural foods for them, and because of that, they're just prone to getting sick. They get infections frequently, and to combat that, we give them hormones, we give them antibiotics. Those things pass directly into the milk and pass straight on to us, along with, and it's gross, pus from their infections will be in the milk as well. All the effects of a poor life for the cow get passed directly on to us. Now in India, they don't have the same issues with dairy as we do. And India is the only country that I know of besides the West that uses milk on a regular basis. But India treats their cows like gods. So maybe there's something to that. In any event, our milk tends to cause inflammation in the gut, which causes a variety of problems spread out across the body that can be hard to tie directly to milk. But these subtle effects that are often wouldn't seem like they would come from food, we're starting to find that they do come from food. There was one study done with people with chronic asthma where they were given a vegan diet, and after a year, 92% of those people had their asthma clear up entirely. And a vegan diet, you're cutting out dairy, you're cutting out meat, and you're cutting out eggs. I haven't seen anything else in the literature to indicate that meat and eggs would have any sort of tie to asthma, and my guess is that it is the dairy. I can't say that with any kind of proof, but I've seen it again and again with my patients. A lot of ones who have allergies that we just can't get to the bottom of, it ends up being the dairy. Now that particular study was about asthma, but you often see very similar things with allergies and with eczema, where when people cut the dairy, the eczema goes away. When people cut the dairy, the allergies go away. And for other people, that inflammation in the gut will show itself in arthritis. It'll show itself as inflammation in the joints. And for others, the inflammation in the gut, you'll feel it in the gut itself. When you get inflammation in the gut, it can show up almost anywhere in the body, so it can be hard to pin down. But more and more, we're finding dairy is very heavily tied to this set of problems for people. So what about calcium and what about strong bones? We were taught that we need to have dairy in order to get enough calcium in order to have strong bones. But it's more complicated than that. And a quick look at populations rules this whole theory out. If you look at the Caucasian race, which tends to be better at digesting milk than any other race, we also have the highest rates of osteoporosis of any other race. Along with calcium, for healthy bones, you need vitamin D. Americans are generally deficient in vitamin D. You need vitamin K, which mostly comes from gut bacteria, and most of us, our gut bacteria is not healthy. You also, when your system becomes too acidic, your body will use calcium in order to buffer the urine, and you'll pee calcium out. Americans have an extremely acid-forming diet, and dairy is extremely acid-forming for the body. All right, I hope I didn't lose you with the science. I could go on and on and on about that because I love to geek out about it, but I think I've already done that enough. So let's put in a plan for you so that you can try this out and see how it works for you. I'm not going to recommend that you cut all dairy forever because it's a bad food, because it may be good for you personally, that is. So what we'll do is I'm going to recommend that you take 2 weeks and cut all dairy out. After 2 weeks, if you like yogurt and like cheese, you're going to bring back in some yogurt and cheese, starting with something from pasture-raised cows. If you get a reaction when you bring those things back in, you'll know that more than likely you personally react to casein, and it's something that you would probably be best served to cut out of your diet. If you don't react, it means that the casein is probably okay for you. So now we'll test the other things. We'll see how the lactose is for you. So now go ahead and bring in some grass-fed milk. And if that treats you wrong, then you know that the lactose is an issue. And if that's okay for you, go ahead and bring in some dairy that comes from conventionally raised cattle, if you want to have dairy from conventionally raised cattle, and see how that treats you. That one could be a little bit different because the hormones and the antibiotics and those things in the conventionally raised cows may not show themselves as quickly and readily as the other tests will. But if that's not something you're concerned with, you can always go that route. During those 2 weeks when you're cutting out dairy and during the time afterward when you're gradually reintroducing it, I'd recommend trying out some soy milk, trying out some almond milk, trying out a milk alternative. The cheese alternatives are pretty terrible, so you can try those if you want. They're probably not going to be satisfying. There's some pretty good yogurts out there that aren't dairy-based, and those will probably hold you off for 2 weeks. Most people seem to do okay with yogurt, so when we get to the reintroduction, you'll probably find yogurt treats you okay, but it's still good to test what's out there. So pick your start date, get your dairy-free goods, get your dairy-free recipes, and get to it. If you like this video, please click the like button. If you'd like to see more of what I have to say, subscribe to my channel. Thanks. Enjoy.